Good afternoon. Today I'm going to talk to you about the basics of set design, and this knowledge should be helpful to you from Key Stage 3 drama all the way up until Key Stage 5. First of all, let's talk about the different kinds of jobs that you can get in set design. Now, depending on the scale of the show and the budget that it has, this might be all done by one person, or it might be done by a team of people. So the set designer is responsible for the overall creative vision of the set, and they will work in collaboration with the whole creative team to bring their vision to life, often closely working with the director. Carpenters, metalworkers and scenic artists are people who will help bring that vision to life. The scenic artists often do the finishing touches, adding texture, paint and decoration to the set to really make it come to life and work as an overall concept. First of all, let's discuss the purpose of set before we learn about the ways to describe it. So a theatre set should provide location for the action, suggest the style and tone of the whole production, create mood and atmosphere, give clues to the specific time and place of action, and offer creative possibilities for movement and grouping of actors. So in a very similar way to lighting and sound design, set can have a massive impact on the audience's experience of the production, and it can indicate key information about the given circumstances to the audience. Everything included on the stage can be classed as set design, and therefore props are also part of set design. Sometimes people debate about what is classed as set and what is classed as a prop. I think the easiest way to understand it for me is that a prop, also known as a stage property, is often very portable and can often be moved by one actor, either on or off stage. Often set can tend to be a little bit more fixed, could be larger, it could be more operated by more than one person, but generally don't worry too much about the difference between set and props. When a question in GCSE drama or A-level drama asks you about set, it will often be in tandem with props, so all of it is kind of included. Let's talk about the elements of stage design. So one of the most basic but not to be underestimated pieces of set is a stage flat. A stage flat is a wooden structure which can either be pure wood, or it can also have a really thin material called muslin in front of it to create scenic art on stage and to indicate things like location or to give really simple 2D design. It could be fixed, so it could be in a set position and stay there for the whole of the production, or it might be on small wheels, which we call casters, so it can be moved off and on as and when is needed. A wagon is essentially a platform which can be moved on stage and off stage very easily and simply. Wagons can be small or they can be large, and generally they come on stage either with casters or what we call tracks and metal tracking systems. Casters are manually operated and can be moved often on stage by stagehands or actors, and tracks can be computer operated or manually operated by the side of stage. And generally, if something is on tracks, it is a heavier item, or it's an item which is weight bearing. So actors might need to stand on this item, and it's generally a lot more substantial than a smaller wagon. Rostra is something you might have seen perhaps at school, but it's often used in professional productions as well to create levels on stage. It's temporary staging, which is almost like a platform, and it can be decorated in any way to fit in with the set design. Rostra can be really well used on end-on stages to extend the stage out into the audience and create some dynamic opportunities for actors to interact with each other. But it can also be used at any part of the stage, moved on and off stage accordingly when it's needed. A gauze curtain. So a gauze curtain is sometimes called a scrim. But essentially, a gauze curtain or screen is a curtain which can be semi-transparent or opaque depending on where you light it. So you might have seen one of these in productions before. They can be fantastic for creating particular atmospheres. So for example, if it's lit from the front, it will be opaque and you can't see through it. And if it's lit from the back, it will make it transparent or semi-transparent. And often this can be used to indicate two different locations on the stage, or as I said before, to create a really eerie atmosphere, or an atmosphere which might be secretive, for example, that we feel like we maybe shouldn't be allowed to see. It's worth pausing here to have a little comment on drapery. So drapery essentially refers to any curtains which are on stage, and it's important to know the different names for the curtains on stage. Now at GCSE and A-level, it's not essential that you remember these off by heart, but I think they can be really helpful when thinking about your overall concept for a set design. And it's important to include them in your thinking if they enhance your ideas and your artistic intentions. It's easiest to describe drapery, I feel, with some images. So let's have a look at this. Now this is a breakdown of a potential end on stage which has different kinds of curtains. So at the very front of the theatre, we can see some curtains, usually red, as is tradition, which are large and stop the audience from seeing the whole stage. And they often work on a system where people can open them at the side of stage on a pulley rope, and these are called the tabs. So the very, very big curtains at the front are called the tabs. Now behind the tabs, we can notice something called sometimes an iron curtain. Not every theatre has an iron curtain, but particularly theatres which are very old or of historic significance may have an iron curtain as a safety feature. And iron curtains can be used to stop the spread of fire from the stage to the theatre auditorium. Border curtains are small, short curtains which can be seen hanging, usually from the top of the stage. They sometimes are placed in front of lighting rigs to block out the lights for the audience to stop them shining in front of their eyes. See if you can spot border curtains next time you go to the theatre. We then may have a gauze, as we discussed before. And on the side of the stage, you might have seen before big, long curtains that can block the audience's view of the actors in the wings. We call these legs. And legs can either be plain in colour, or they might have a printed design on them to help with the set design. A ground row is both a practical and creative thing which you can incorporate into your set design. A ground row is usually made of wood, and it can be placed along the whole back of the stage to hide things like lighting instruments or other devices which might be used technically in the theatre, such as wiring, etc. And a ground row doesn't just have to be a basic design. It can be complex. It can use what we call forced perspective that we'll talk about later, or it could just be a 2D printed design depending on what you like. And then again, lots of theatres have a large curtain at the back called a backdrop. And this can either be printed or it can be plain and projected onto to create beautiful designs that can change throughout the production or might remain the same, again, depending on budget and a few other factors to consider. Backdrops often use something called forced perspective, which I mentioned briefly earlier. Forced perspective is a term that we borrow from art, and it refers to when we can make items or make images appear closer or further away, depending on what we would like. So here, for example, in this image, we can see that the houses at the back seem to be much further away than they are because we've used perspective in this illustration in order to indicate that the road is going into the distance. Forced perspective can be a really, really lovely way for us to make our set design seem bigger, to make the actors' world seem more realistic, and to really help us imagine the world of the play. Let's have a look at some examples and see if you have understood the knowledge which we have discussed so far. So here we have just a basic stage that has some of the drapery we discussed earlier. Did you spot them? We have the tabs at the front, and we have the borders at the very top here hiding the lighting rigs. We have the legs at the sides to stop the actors in the wings being seen by the audience. In this image here, we have a production of Beauty and the Beast, and we have, you can see, borders at the top, tabs at the side, props being held by the actors, and we also have a backdrop with forced perspective to look almost like a tavern in the background, which is fantastic. In this set design, we can see a lot of complex set design choices. Can you spot them all? Here's some fixed furniture on a wagon. We know that this would be fixed for safety reasons. Here we have the house set, which we imagine would be on a large wagon installed via tracks, metal tracks. We know that this would be on tracks because it's weight bearing. We have many actors using this space, and I would imagine that in this production, this house set will be moved partway through and replaced with other locations. Here we have a backdrop, which is either a painted backdrop or could possibly be projection onto a backdrop. It's important to note that projection could be classed as either lighting design or set design, depending on your overall vision. We have some props here, which does not appear to be fixed, possibly brought on by actors or stagehands. We have the orchestra pit below, the theatre space. This is a production of Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead by Complicity. And in this production, there was many complex set design choices which helped the writers and the director's artistic intentions. At the background here, we can see a gauze screen. Can you see how this semi-transparent effect creates such a eerie and sinister atmosphere? We also have props at the front, which are not fixed. Here is a production of Nativity from Birmingham Rep a few years ago. We have a fixed or a follow spot, and we have stage flats on casters. So these are 2D designs which are in the background of this scene and can be wheeled on and off on small caster wheels. Now, I think it's important when we're understanding set design to look at examples of beautiful set design ideas to get our creativity flowing. Remember, if you're at GCSE or A-level standard, the examiners are looking for your creativity. Technical knowledge is important because it can help you achieve those high band answers, and also it can help you articulate your ideas. But it's most important that your ideas are creative and exciting and bold. So Bunny Christie is a famous set designer who works in the UK, and she has designed some of the most beautiful and fantastic set designs that we have seen in recent years. Below in the video, I'm going to link a video where she explains her creative process and how she works with directors and a creative team to come up with her concepts. Here, and talk about David Korins briefly. He is a set designer from the US who has designed the set for Hamilton. And in the articles that I've linked below in the description box, he discusses his creative process. Now, his process is slightly different to Bunny's, but I think it's really, really exciting to see how he comes up with ideas and how he takes them from a page in his sketchbook to a final finished design. So here are all your key terms for set design. The only ones we haven't covered in the video so far, which I'll briefly discuss, are revolve. So a revolve refers to a rotating stage. If you were to say rotating stage in the exam, that would still be an acceptable term, but revolve is the more formal term which we use to describe a rotating stage. And that can be any shape that you like. Here as well, we have a pulley system, which we have yet to discuss. A pulley system is a hoisting system, which we can use to raise items vertically on or off stage. So for example, in this play, Drive Your Plough by Complicity, they had these coats which they wanted to get onto the stage, but rather than actors bringing on the coats, they used a pulley rope to lower the coats down into the space for the actors to use. And this was really, really helpful at supporting the non-naturalistic style of the play. If you wish to revise these key terms, I'm going to post a link to a Quizlet task for you below. Again, I would recommend doing a bit more research on set design so that you can come up with your own original ideas, but also become familiar with these key terms and see if you can recognise them.